welcome to Red Ice Radio, new and regular listeners. It's great to have you with us. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Henrik Palmgren. Our website is redicecreations.com. Go there for more information about our radio program, and of course follow along in our frequently updated news about all the things that we consider to be interesting and important. On our website you can also find videos, webcasts, films and other video interviews. Check out our members area as well for much more of that. And today we have journalist Sandy Frost with us on the line, and we are going to talk about the Royal Order of Jesters. This is a branch or a group that is associated with the Shriners, who are of course connected with Freemasonry. You might recall an article that we had up on our website not too long ago about the bizarre activities of the Jesters, including routinely hiring prostitutes for gatherings, sex competitions, and degrading initiation rites for new members. And this was mentioned in an article, in the article from Buffalo News, actually. And it continued, just going to read a little bit more from it here. It said, the case against the 3 Buffalo area jesters is wrapping up with sentencing expected soon. Federal agents have expanded their investigations and are looking into allegations that illegal activities occurred at outings sponsored by more of the Jesters' 191 chapters. The local man who pleaded guilty in the Buffalo case and others have cooperated with the feds, providing information about Jesters' events in other cities. And Sandy has, of course, been looking into a non-profit organization for quite some time, and she's been writing on her website about the Jesters and the Shriners as well. And you can check this out, of course, by going to her website. Simply type in sandyfrost.newswine.com, and that will get you a whole lot more information about Sandy, about some of the things that she's been writing about. But of course, we are going to go through this together with Sandy from the top, if you will, here today. So with that, welcome to Red Ice Radio, Sandy. It's great to have you with us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Your website is great, and I love your vision. I love your program's direction. It's very, very exciting.
Thank you very much for mentioning that, Sandy. It's great to have you here. Thank you again for spending some of your time with us. Tell us a little bit about this then, when you first started writing about the Jesters. This recent Buffalo News story that I read about was published around May 5th, I think, and this is the first time that it's gone, the article stated that it's gone national, as it were now, but this has been brewing under the surface and locally for quite some time, I think. But when did you get involved in all of this, Sandy?
Well, I had written a manuscript for an international magazine, and I submitted it, and I was told in February of 2008 it wasn't going to run until October, and I didn't want that kind of lag time. So intuitively, I published the first ever article written about the Royal Order of Jesters on Friday, February 15th, and I was contacted, and on March 6th, I wrote and published Jesters to testify about illegal drugs and child prostitution. And as if that was not bad enough, then about a month later, Dan Herbeck of the Buffalo News did write an article about how Judge Tills resigned his job because he was this central figure in an FBI probe. And all of this happened within about a month, which is, extraordinary synchronicity.
Tell us a little bit more about that. And then you said this is a judge, of course, that his name was Tills.
Yes.
And are you in any regard local to this area, so have been knowing what has been going on, or have you done this remotely, so to speak?
This is like a little command center, and I love the internet. I can get into the federal court system. Their document system is called PACER, and I'm able to get into the PACER system. And what really shocked me the most was when I got into PACER and discovered an FBI application for arrest warrants of the woman Len Wah Chong, who was operating 4 massage parlors in Buffalo, New York, as fronts for prostitution. And it was through the wiretapping of this woman that they overheard her talking to the judge and to the police captain who was also caught, John Trowbridge, and he was just sentenced last week for violating the Mann Act. So in Pacer, I just stumbled across this document, and that is where I found the wiretap snippets of the judge calling and saying, I'm going to be over, and then she'd call one of her massage parlors and say, the judge is on his way, and, be good to him. It was crazy.
I have no idea that this was out and available on the internet. So this has nothing to do with like the Freedom of Information Act or something like that? This is just available for anyone?
Right. You get a Pacer account. I think it's 8 cents a page, and this is how I was able. In the other case of the fishing tour operator who took those 19 jesters down to Brazil on their fishing trip, in that case, that was a defamation case between two fishing tour operators. I was able to find the depositions of 4 little Brazilian girls who went to the Brazilian Federal Police as they were investigating the abuse of minors in certain areas of the Amazon by North Americans.
Really? No. Huh.
Yeah, and that was very tough to read because these girls went, and of course they were scared. They were lured off their Indian reservations in Brazil, told that they were going to fish, help with the fishing boat, cook, clean, and when they got there, they were tricked to find out that they were going to be prostitutes for these North American fishermen.
How about that? And why do you think that the Buffalo News doesn't write about this? Because, okay, it's bad enough what they write about, right? These sex parties, prostitutes, sex contests or whatever it is. That some of these members have been involved with. But why do you think that they don't touch upon the child prostitution and things like that?
I think that's going to become international. I believe that, you're actually the first media to actually help me break this news because the man, the Richard Scher, the fishing tour operator who did take the 19 jesters down, was indicted by Brazilian authorities at the end of April. Mm-hmm. And Monday, tomorrow, I believe the Brazilian police or Brazilian federal police are going to be announcing this indictment in terms of a government-wide investigation into prostitution networks, child sex tourism, and possibly pedophilia.
And for many people who have been following alternative news and some of these awful stories about prostitution rings and child abuse and so forth, know that this has been going on for a long time. There's people like Ted Gunderson who has exposed this. There's another writer who I forget the name of now who actually wrote a book and she was from Brazil, I think, and she wrote a book about these. I'm going to bring this article up later on, and so I can mention the name for people who are listening. But what do you think that this will lead to, so to speak? Do you think that this will lead to a bigger rings being exposed, or do you think it will keep within the, how should I put it, circumference of things just related to the jesters?
Both. As far as I'm concerned, at this point, I believe that there are United States as well as Brazilian authorities looking at joint targets of interest associated with Richard Scher, the fishing tour operator. And what that's going to mean is I believe that those 19 jesters who were named on the defense's witness list, they were expected to testify about their firsthand knowledge of drug use and child sex prostitution and prostitution down there. This goes back to the Buffalo case. And I know it's a little bit convoluted and confusing. If I can just back up a little bit.
Sure. Go ahead, Sandy.
Remember, the Buffalo case involved the FBI catching a judge, a retired police captain, and the judge's law clerk, who is also a former prosecutor, in an FBI human trafficking sting. So Judge Tills is now the only one waiting to be sentenced. The other two were sentenced, and their sentencing involves they're now felons. They're put on probation, and they're supposed to register with the New York State Sex Offender Registry. And apparently, those two who've been sentenced have not done that yet. So Judge Tills, he was supposed to be sentenced May 7th last week, and his sentencing was extended because according to a transcript that I have here of a hearing that he had before the judge, the transcript says that he's providing proactive cooperation with the unlawful transportations of individuals for prostitution, but that includes sex trafficking, sexual exploitation of minors, or any international travel for that purpose. So I think that we're going to see an intersection of these two cases, and I don't know when.
Okay, that's very interesting. I just want to go back quickly as well. The woman that I told briefly about is actually from Mexico, not from Brazil, but again, basically, you might be familiar with her. I think her name is Lydia Caucho, if I pronounced that name correctly.
Yes, I've written to her. I've not heard back from her, but I wrote to her, yes.
Okay, so, again, this paints this awful story of what actually is going on, and as I mentioned, many researchers have been looking into this, and it seems to be global. It has ties up into the elite branches of society, and again, if we just go back and tie this together with the jesters again, I know that from the Buffalo News story, there was one account from someone who called himself Edwards, says he was a farmer in his 60s.
Johnny Edwards, right?
Johnny Edwards. Okay.
I know Johnny. He's great.
Okay, well, tell us about him. He dropped off, I guess, then from the jesters back in the 98, I think.
Well, he quit the jesters, but he was also kicked out of the Shriners. One of the more disillusioning aspects of the Shriners that I've learned about is this incredible retaliation with which they go after people who ask questions. Briefly, my two original sources, the Shriner whistleblower and a former IRS agent, were sued for defamation. Mm-hmm. And I was named as a secondary party of interest in the lawsuit because the Shriners are vicious.
All of them, or just a few? All of them, are just a few who, I guess.
The leaders. There's something very unusual going on with them, and I believe that when we look at the Shriner leadership, they translate also into the Royal Order of Jesters. They're joint boards of directors. The majority of those people are also members of the Royal Order of Jesters.
Yes, and maybe we can talk about how that works a little bit if you're familiar with it. What I've read up on so far is that basically you can only be let into the Jesters by invitation. You can't apply for it, and you have to be at least, what did it say now? Back from, let's see, I'm going to bring this information up here again. Yeah, here it is. Until 2000, before being eligible for membership in the Shriners, a person had to complete either the Scottish Rite or York Rite degrees of Freemasonry, but now any Master Mason can join, and of course you have to be a Shriner before you can join the Jesters. Is that right?
Exactly. Good work.
Yeah.
You said it better than I could.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. But what do you think? Because again, if we go back to this article, there's a few of these eyewitnesses or testimonies from another one called Malcolm Mutt Herring. He's 90 years old, live in Montgomery, Alabama, I think it is, and said, I quit because I don't drink and I don't mess around with other women other than my wife. Going to one of their events was like going to a whorehouse, he said. And he suspects that this is going on in other branches of the Royal Order of Justice as well, not only locally to the Buffalo area. What do you think?
Well, not only does Mutt Herring say that, but this is the opinion of the United States U.S. Attorney out of Buffalo. They've described the Royal Order of Jesters as a group nationwide that has members throughout their chapters, which are called courts. They're like court jesters. So they're in the jester courts. The U.S. Attorney has written that most of the courts have a guy in the court who gets the women for their weekend parties.
How about that?
Yeah, that's pretty strong when you have the United States Attorney saying that. So at this point, I think that what we're seeing is an unraveling. This is just the beginning. And once this Brazilian indictment matches up